Halloween was big on matchmaking in the early 1900s. You might be surprised to hear that during the late Victorian era and the early 20th century, Halloween parties were basically turned-off matchmaking parties. Okay, maybe not super turned, but people sometimes dressed up in disguises or a nice outfit and hoped to find their OTP. Yeah, this wasn't a super child-focused holiday just yet. An uptick in candy and an uptick in violence. The 1920s and 1930s, trick-or-treating had a very small following and it was very child-oriented. Candy companies tried to jump on the trend ASAP, but along with treats came plenty of tricks. In fact, vandalism on and around Halloween was a huge deal around this time. I'm not talking knocking down a mailbox or TPING a house. Imagine gangs of rowdy young kids breaking into businesses, starting fires, and generally causing a huge effing mess. Some major urban areas would report up to $100 of damage. But all that mischief would suddenly fall within the next decade or so. WWI led to sugar rationing and less vandalism. Why did all that violence dissipate? Oh, you know, the country was just in a major world war. NBD, no, but really, around this time, vandalism of any sort wasn't just seen as annoying, it was seen as unpatriotic. It was like suburban treason. Also, sugar rationing made one of the best parts of Halloween, the candy, take a major backseat in the festivities. The rebirth of Halloween after the war. After the war, Halloween got its spunk back. To curb a possible resurgence of vandalism, parents were encouraged to host Halloween parties for their kids. Yeah, that meant you were keeping your butt indoors and bobbing for apples ad nauseum. Forget trick-or-treating. In fact, some people even found trick-or-treating offensive. Famously, in 1948, the Madison Square Boys Club staged a parade in which they protested the act of trick-or-treating. Their tagline? American boys don't beg. How much do you want to bet that this was the idea of these kids' parents, not the actual kids? The big comeback of trick-or-treating in the 50s and 60s. Halloween parties were still a big deal, but trick-or-treating was finally seeing its first big comeback in nearly 2 decades by the 1950s. There are 2 huge factors that started this. 1. Trick or Treat for UNICEF, the charity organization. Yep, this started in 1953 and became a massive hit around the country by the late 50s. It was basically uncool if you were just stuck inside all day and not going out there getting candy and helping to save the world through charity. 2. Candy companies leapt on the trick-or-treating trend by mass-marketing Halloween-themed advertising. Halloween is for the big kids again. Halloween had gone from a largely adult affair to child-centric in a matter of 50 years, but by the 70s and 80s, Halloween started to be acceptable for adults to participate in again. In fact, urban LGBTQ communities in New York City, San Francisco, and Los Angeles can be credited for prompting this shift, because local groups often threw big Halloween parties and parades. Also, once teens outgrew trick-or-treating, many decided to have some fun the night before Halloween. Whether you call it Mischief Night, Devil's Night, or something totally different, the night before Halloween was the ultimate prank day again for young folks in the 70s and 80s. Sure, people still pull pranks today, but it certainly seems to be less common. Talk to anyone who was a kid during that time, and they'll have plenty of stories to tell, trust. Halloween candy tampering myths. Has your mom or dad ever warned you about Halloween candy that might be poisoned? What about apples with razor blades in them? You'll be happy to know that that's all a bunch of BS. There was never an incident in which several kids died after eating tampered Halloween treats. So how did this paranoia begin? In 1975, a young boy died of cyanide poisoning after eating Halloween candy. But he didn't receive the candy from some creepy stranger. Nope, his own dad poisoned him. Still, rumors ran wild, and soon enough, poisoned candy became every parent's worst nightmare in the 80s and 90s. You couldn't even get through a Gem Halloween episode without getting interrupted by your mom warning you about your neighbors trying to poison you. Woof. The spread of Halloween around the world. Halloween really wasn't the phenomenon it is today anywhere outside the United States until the 90s and 2000s. Before then, the idea of having a Halloween party in the UK was unthinkable. But, hey, Halloween is a huge business that rakes in billions of dollars a year. Also, due to America's massive pop culture influence worldwide, it should come as no surprise that people have begun to celebrate Halloween in loads of different countries. I mean, look at that photo of the effing Queen of England overseeing some pumpkin action. With that said, it's safe to say that America is still the one place where Halloween is truly a massive national holiday. Getting critical about Halloween costumes. In the age of think pieces, viral photos, and political correctness, a year doesn't go by without controversy over Halloween costumes. Nobody's just dressing up as a witch or a devil anymore. Nope, we've gotten a lot more creative, which is great in some ways and terrible in others. For example, guys dressing up in blackface and pretending to be rappers, and girls wearing cheap headdresses and dressing up as Indian princesses. Sup? Cultural appropriation? Then there's the ultra-topical costumes like Caitlyn Jenner or a Syrian refugee. Barf. The Culture, Not a Costume campaign launched in 2011 to help combat the ignorance. Then, there's the fact that sexy Halloween costumes are getting marketed to a younger and younger audience, especially for girls. A lot of slut-shaming usually accompanies criticism of teen girls dressing sexy for Halloween, which is ridiculous. But it is pretty alarming that borderline dominatrix outfits are being marketed toward 8-year-olds.